Arthur No Fee Fitness here, and today we're going to talk about the hype magnet of the year, training at long muscle lengths, deep ranges, lengthened partials, bottom end bias, the whole thing everyone's arguing about. Some people swear it's the new hypertrophy cheat code. Others say it's overblown and you should just use a full range and move on. The truth sits right between those two takes, and if you understand where it shines and where it's just noise, you'll grow smarter, not just sorer. No fee, no BS, just gains. Let's start with what this actually means. Long length or stretch bias training is simply loading the muscle when it's most elongated. Think of squats where you live in the pocket instead of bouncing out and coasting the top. Cable flies set low so the pecs are stretched and you pause there. Incline curls where the elbow drifts behind the body and you fight for that bottom third. Even pulldowns with a soft rib cage and a long reach to actually lengthen your lats instead of ego-yanking. Lengthened partials take that to the extreme by focusing most or all of your reps in the stretched third of the movement. The pitch is simple, more mechanical tension on long fibers where passive elements are contributing, potentially more sarcomeres in series, potentially more regional growth toward distal regions. Does it always play out that cleanly? Not always, but there's enough signal to pay attention. Here's the real-world headline. If you compare good full-range training to sloppy partials, full range wins. If you compare good full-range training to well-executed lengthened partials, now it gets interesting. Across recent work, lengthened partials often come out similar to full range on total hypertrophy, sometimes a hair better in specific regions, and occasionally not different at all. That's not the revolution people wanted, but it's not nothing. Where it seems most promising is exactly what the hype claims, a little more growth bias in the parts of a muscle that are loaded hardest at long lengths. The catch is that those effects are usually modest, not magic, and they depend on the exercise, the muscle, and whether the rest of your training actually lets you progress. So let's zoom out to the full body and talk where this actually helps. For quads, deep knee flexion is still king. Whether you're high bar squatting to honest depth, front squatting, split squatting with a longer stride, or using a leg press with your hips tucked and your feet a touch lower, the growth driver is the bottom. That doesn't mean you have to lock yourself in the hole forever. It means you must own it. Pauses in the pocket, controlled descents, and sets where you don't rush the first half of the rep are the difference between I did 10 and I built something. Lengthened partials on a hack squat living in the bottom 2/3 for a few hard sets can bias that. Stimulus further without needing circus loads. But remember, if your knees hate you, your technique is off, or your recovery is trash, living at long length is just extra stress for no return. Depth is a privilege you earn with good joint positions and honest load selection. For lats, the internet makes it complicated, the body doesn't. Lats lengthen when the shoulder flexes up and the humerus drifts forward. You don't have to arch like a gymnast and crank your ribs to the moon. Keep the ribs down, reach long at the top, and pull your elbows toward your pockets. A little external rotation, soft grip, and a path you can repeat rep to rep, that's what lets you load the long position without turning every rep into a tug of war. Lengthened partials here can look like lingering near the top half with clean control and a short pause before you initiate, then driving just into the mid-range. It's boring, slow, and brutally effective when you stop cheating. The upside isn't only size. People often feel lats more clearly because the momentum is gone and the stretch tells you where the tension actually is. For calves, this is the rare case where the hype might be underselling it. The gastrocnemius and soleus respond well when you get a real ankle dorsiflexion stretch and stop rushing that bottom position. Heavy standing calf raises with a 1 to 2 second pause at the bottom, knees straight for gastroc, slightly bent for soleus, add up fast. Lengthened partials for calves, spending more of the set near that deep dorsiflexed position, often beat the bounce and pray version people have been doing for years. It's not glamorous, but it's one of the clearest spots where that long length focus shows up in the mirror. Now the part everyone wants is long length the new default. Not quite. Here's why. Full range training that you actually control already gives you plenty of time under tension at long lengths. If you slow the bottom, pause when it matters, and stop ego throwing the weight, you're already harvesting most of the benefit. What lengthened partials do is turn up that bottom end exposure and strip out the easy top range that often becomes posing with a barbell. That can bias growth where you want it, reduce joint crank at lockout, and let you train productively with slightly less load. But the flip side is fatigue. Living in the bottom third is metabolically and mechanically nasty. You'll need fewer sets, you'll need to watch form like a hawk, and your recovery discipline has to be cleaner. If you stack deep hacks, long length flies, and lengthened curls all in the same day, expect your sleep, appetite, and mood to report back. This is where overhyped meets real. The real part, Long length loading is a legitimate stimulus that probably does a little more for certain regions and certain muscles, especially when your execution is tight. The overhyped part, calling it a universal upgrade, is lazy. Some muscles, rear delts, mid-traps, even triceps, long head, respond just fine to balance ranges, and chasing only the bottom range can turn good movements into shoulder or elbow naggers. For chest, deep cable or dumbbell work with a pause at stretch is money, but the barbell bench has its own constraints. Scapular motion is pinned, chest depth and limb lengths change bottom stress a lot. And your shoulders will tell you when you're taking the deep is always better meme too literally. For hamstrings, the Romanian deadlift already drips long length tension when you stop turning it into a lower back hinge. You don't need to slice off the top to get massive signal. You need the right hip position and the patience to hold it. Let's keep it practical for your entire week. If you're curious and want to profit from the trend without drinking the Kool-Aid, pick a couple of movements across the body where long length is easy to standardize and hard to screw up. For quads, that's a split squat variant or a machine squat with a pause. For chest, cables or dumbbells where your shoulder blades are free to move. For lats, a pull down or row with a clean reach and a soft rib cage. For calves, the standing raise with a bottom pause. You don't need a full program of partials, blend. 1 or 2 long length priority moves per session, progress them like a grown-up and let the rest of your training do its job. Progression still runs the show. If your long length sets never add a rep, never add load, and never look cleaner, the method isn't the problem, the execution is. Keep about 2 reps in reserve on most working sets, so you're building a stack of quality sessions instead of dying for Instagram weekly. Track what matters, same machine seat, same foot angle, same bar path, same pause. The beauty of the bottom bias approach is how brutally honest it is. If you cheat the position, the rep just dies. That honesty is progress fuel if you let it be. Because this is a podcast, let me touch injury risk without turning it into a seminar. Deep positions ask more of joints, connective tissue, and your ego. If your knees cave, your pelvis dumps, or your shoulder turns into a shrug factory, you're not loading long length, you're just loading bad positions. Earn your depth with lighter weight first. Add pauses before you add plates. Warm up through the exact motion you'll train, not random stretches you'll never hold under load. Most people get hurt mixing intensity with novelty. So if you're new to lengthen partials, build familiarity, then drive intensity. And remember that deep work is fatiguing. Your weekly volume may need to come down a notch to keep performance trending up. There's also a side branch to this whole conversation, long duration loaded stretching. People hang out in stretched positions for minutes under light load and claim measurable growth. The more we see, the more it looks like there's something there, but it needs heavy time investment and still doesn't beat traditional resistance training for efficiency. It's a tool you might use for stubborn regions, not a replacement for picking up heavy things and putting them down with control. Now the part you actually care about, how this changes your look. Long length emphasis tends to deliver a denser, rounder look over time because it teaches you not to waste the hardest half of the rep. That's the "my quads look thicker above the knee, my pec tie-ins popping, my lats sit lower on the torso" effect people report. Will that happen in a month? No. But across mesocycles, the logbook tells the tale. Deeper, stronger, steadier execution puts tissue where it counts. And on a cut, this can be a sneaky advantage. Since you can often maintain tension with slightly less load, long length sets can protect joints while keeping the muscle signal high. Just don't pair it with crash dieting and expect miracles. Fuel the work and keep protein where it belongs. So, is long length training overhyped or real? It's real enough to matter and overhyped enough to annoy me. You should use it, but you should earn it. Most of what people think is lengthen magic is just finally doing the hard half of the rep like they were supposed to. When you slow down the bottom, pause where it's hardest, and build week to week, you get most of the upside without needing to label it like a new religion. When you add strategic lengthened partials on a few movements that fit your joints and setup, you might squeeze out a little extra shape where you want it most. That's the full picture. Here's your move. Keep your normal split. Pick a couple of great long length candidates each session. Standardize your positions. Progress cleanly. If your body throws you a red flag, swap the exercise, not the goal. Stay patient and let the mirror lag behind the logbook because it always does. 6 months from now, the difference isn't that you discovered a magic range. It's that you stopped skipping the hard part of every rep and started living there long enough to own it. No fee, no BS, just gains.